When I look back at the men I chose to love, it's clear now. I wasn't choosing with my heart. I was choosing with my trauma. I was a dismissive, avoidant attachment style woman who had no clue of what a healthy, secured attachment style of loving was. Welcome, my loves, to the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast.
Hey loves, I'm home. Hey loves, let's sit on down. As you know, I'm uberly excited about being here in your home again for another episode of the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed Podcast. If you don't know by now, it's your girl London. I am your healologist, and I'm here to make certain that you get to what? The other side. The other side of what? Healing, of course. I want to make certain that you are having the best out of the relationships that you have, whether it's with your partners, your peers, your friends, your family, your children, or even just yourself. You know, there is a relationship that is just within yourself. And if you don't like you, who else is going to like you? But part of liking you is knowing who you are. And the only way to do that is to what? Take the assessment style attachment test. Yes, I know I've said it tons and tons of times. Every episode before this, and this episode is no different. So if you've been here since day one, then you're already on the train. But if not, you better hop aboard before this train leaves you. Oh, wait, where do you think you're going without hitting that subscribe button? And hey, you haven't even taken your attachment style assessment test. That's right. There's an assessment test for you to take, but no worries. It's only 5 minutes. I know you have 5 minutes, just like you have that 1 second to hit that subscribe button. Now, if you haven't seen the previous episodes of the Hurt, Hardened, and Healed podcast, where I explain what an attachment style test is, you're in up to date. It is basically a specific questionnaire that asks questions to determine whether you are secured emotionally or unsecured. Now, when I say unsecure, I don't mean insecure. There's a difference. Trust me. But knowing your emotional status is very important. Just as important as taking care of your mental health. Now, if you don't know where those tests are, no worries. I'm going to link that in the description box below. I'll put about 4 links there. You can choose one of them. Or hell, you can do them all. They all can't be wrong, right? Once you determine what your attachment style is, please be sure to comment it in the comment section. I would love to know. Hey, so get to testing and good luck. All right, so now that that's been taken care of, let's just get right into it. This episode is about setting boundaries. So this is for my attachment style loves who have taken the test and maybe secured, because we're not leaving secured out. There's a lot of secured people out there. Hello, I happen to be one. At least now I am. But even if you're not and you're on your way to healing and you are aware of your attachment style and now you've identified with your partner's attachment style, now there's time to set some boundaries. And I mean, this could be from a little to a lot. So just bear with me and hold on. This could get a little bit bumpy. But this is definitely important. So while you're now developing your own coping mechanisms that are now healthy and you are straying away from the behaviors that aren't that healthy or toxic, I should say, you're now trying to find that middle ground, right? The middle ground between not being triggered and not being triggering, right? Because you can't get well and then just leave your partner behind. You have to be able to make certain that you are not testing the boundaries on that end, but also creating boundaries for yourself. So what does that look like? Great question. One is being able to identify what your partner's attachment style, understanding what their triggers are if it's different from yours, and then also know when they are being triggered indirectly. So this means that maybe you didn't cause it, someone else, some type of outside involvement caused this, but now you're reaping the repercussions of it. I'm sorry, you just gonna have to call them out on it. You're gonna have to say, hey, this behavior we're not doing. We're not isolating. We're not separating. You're not going over here for 3 or 4 days. I'm not going over there for 3 or 4 days. We're not doing that. Or you're not going to blow up my phone. You're not going to blow up my phone and hunt me down and call people looking for me. This is unacceptable. We're not doing this. And so by calling out each other's behaviors, we get to identify in the moment. So you have to address it in the moment. You don't want to address it at a later date and time, because then people don't remember, or it wasn't that serious. You're making a big deal out of nothing. A mountain out of a molehill. You've heard it all. So the best thing to do is to be able to address it in that moment and be specific. Hey, babe, so I know that I said I was going to call you at lunch. I didn't get a chance to call you at lunch. Work got busy. You can send this via text. Or if your significant other has been specific about preferring a phone call instead of text, then you may have to deal with them at a later time if you're unable to call. But you want to address the person's concerns. And it's so crazy because, like with a dismissive, it's hard to address their concerns because they're not vulnerable enough to tell you it. Yeah, so that gets to be a little bit difficult. However, their behaviors will tell you. So while you may not be able to address their concerns in advance, their behaviors will tell you that they're triggered, and you get to address those behaviors and say, hey, we've talked about this. We're going to call a spade a spade. When one another is having some type of meltdown or some type of trigger, we're going to address it. So you are doing this, which tells me there's a problem. I need you to not deny the problem. I need you to identify it and express it to me. And there's no problem too big or too little. I mean, sometimes I think it goes back to, like, you know how people say there's no stupid question except the question you didn't ask. It's kind of the same thing. Like, maybe your partner does think it's really not that big of a deal. But now that your partner identifies with your traumas and your triggers, your partner will know what is not big for them could definitely be big for you, and vice versa. So when you're creating the boundaries for yourself, you have to be able to say, hey, that's triggering. That is going to trigger me. And that behavior is unacceptable. That what you're doing is not going to bring out the best in me. And I don't feel good when you do that. And you have to just be honest. Now, some people are offensive when you are offended when you call them out and you tell them that they did something that hurt you, especially if they didn't mean to. They really take offense to it. And then you have to address that. You have to say, listen, I realize that telling you that I have a problem with that upsets you, but it doesn't upset you more than it upsets me. Because if it wasn't upsetting to me, I would not address it. If it wasn't upsetting to me, I would not mention it. If it was not upsetting to me, I would not tell you to upset you. So we have to be able to advocate for ourselves and say, no. Pookie, Bookie, Boo-boo, whomever. No, we're not doing that. I'm not accepting that. That does not aid me in my healing and my healthy emotional journey. So no. And the person that loves you may or may not get in their feelings, but they'll be there to stay. You know, we have to talk about abandonment issues. Hey, when you do things like that, that makes me feel abandoned. It feels inconsiderate. It feels rude. It makes me feel unappreciated. You have to have those conversations. And it does hurt. It does step on people's toes. Because imagine if someone said it to you. But of course, you have to have these conversations kind of based on the partner that you have. And it makes more sense if you have this conversation with a partner who's also taken the assessment test. Because if they hadn't taken the assessment test, then they're not able to really understand you or themselves for that matter. So the test is super, super important. It is important for them so that they are able to understand their behaviors and understand how their behaviors could trigger yours. And the best way to protect yourself is through communication. It's not through shutting down. It's not through having a temper tantrum. It's not through falling out. It's through communication. Let me tell you something that I recently just learned. Communicating is not based on your level. It's based on the level of the person that you're talking to. In layman's terms, you talk to a 2-year-old the way you talk to a 2-year-old. You don't talk to a 2-year-old like a 12-year-old. You don't talk to a 12-year-old like a 24-year-old, or at least I hope you don't. But I say that to say, when you're communicating, because some people are very effective in communicating as long as they are communicating with someone who has the same communication style. So this is going to be very vital in exchanging information and being able to see a change and growth. If you are expressing yourself in a way that your partner doesn't understand, and your partner is not willing to say, I don't get it. What does that mean? What does that look like? It's not effective. I don't care how great you use your words. I don't care how large your vocabulary is. I don't care how slow you speak, how poised you are. If the person you're talking to is unable to receive the information that you're giving, you're not effectively communicating. And listen, it's not really about you. It's about them. You know what you know. You need them to know what you know. So you may have to make it in layman's terms. Maybe articulate it differently. That's the same as saying, just say it differently. You see, I could choose to use articulate or just say it. But based on your audience, and so this is just not for romantic partners, but peers, parents, children, co-workers, boss, you have to say it in a way that they are able to understand. And I will say it is probably more likely that you'd have to dumb it down than that you would have to beef it up. So if someone is not gaining clarity, less is more, right? Being maybe a little bit more descriptive, being more specific, giving examples. These are great ways to be able to communicate effectively. Because if not, your boundaries will always get crossed. It'll be, I didn't understand it that way. That's not what you said. I didn't know it meant that. And so when you, and granted, I know you're probably thinking, well, I don't have time to do this with everybody. You do. Everybody that matters, you do. The same way you can goo gaga that newborn is the same way that you can change your verbiage, dialogue, vocabulary, words. See what I did there? It's the same exact way. You have to appease your audience because at the end of the day, it's you that is trying to be served. You're trying to have your needs met, but also you're trying to meet the needs of whomever's on the receiving end. And if you can effectively understand them, that is not a win if they cannot effectively understand you. It is a two-way street. And so boundaries are super, super important, but they won't be respected if they're not understood. So you can make the challenge of it all you want, but it is imperative that you speak to your audience in a way that they understand. Sometimes being specific might feel like being repetitive, but it may be that you're not specific enough. Or maybe that you're too specific. Maybe you're too detailed. Maybe you're giving too much information and they're unable to process all of that at once. You know, like when you tell your 5-year-old to go clean their room, if you leave it flat like that, chances are their room isn't going to be clean, right? I'm not even sure what they would do, what they do consider cleaning the room, but they're going to do their version of cleaning the room. But if you tell your 5-year-old, I need you to go put all your shoes in the closet. Now, that's not the end of that detail, but that's all that they can process in that moment. And they come back and say, I put all my shoes up. Good. Now I need you to pick up all your toys off the floor and put them in your toy chest. Because picking them up and placing them where? Now, you could assume that they should just know. But again, they're 5. So you have to give a little bit of grace for picking them up and just moving them someplace else versus giving them a destination of where to place it. Now, am I telling you to talk to your significant other like they're a child? No. But what I am saying is you talk to them so that they can understand and not like they are your child, because that's going to get you nowhere either. If they're saying you're not my mama, you're not my daddy, then your delivery is sucking in that moment. And I'm guilty of it. I've been hit a few times with my mom lives over such and such and such a place. And I've myself had to say, my daddy dead, right? That is a clear indicator that the delivery is not going over well. And we're not winning here. The goal is to get to the other side. The goal is to be able to have a conversation that ends in healing. It ends in resolve. And it's executed correctly. That cannot be done. There's nothing worse than somebody willing to get it right with all the wrong answers. I mean, if you have the answers to the math test, but you're in science class, we'll see how high your grade is. I'm just saying. So when you create the boundaries are to be able to establish a cutoff from what is understood. Now, if there's miscommunication or misinterpretation, then you almost can't put a boundary there. You can't say, this is my level of this is my capacity of this, if the person doesn't even understand the volume, if they don't understand the magnitude. So when you're dealing with these different attachment styles and you're creating the boundaries that keep you from being easily triggered, you have to be able to convey it in a way that your partner can respect. And saying, "You not my mama," I mean, that's pretty much in layman's terms, but more specifically, hey, you don't have to speak to me like you're my parent. I understand. You don't have to speak to me like I'm a child. Or, no, I don't understand, but don't talk to me like I'm a child. I'd prefer for you to talk to me in this way. Or, hey, you don't have to yell. You don't have to scream. Am I saying something to upset you? Because a lot of times we just say, don't yell at me. But if someone's yelling at you, chances are you're triggering them, intentionally or not. So, hey, I realize you're yelling. Is there something that I'm saying that's upsetting you? Did I say something that turned us in the wrong direction? Because this is not panning out right now. Let's have a discussion about that. Hey, the last few things that I said to you, what about what I said bothered you? Because you're yelling, so I could tell that you're annoyed. And sometimes people say, I'm not yelling, I'm just passionate. What's bringing out all this passion? Because you're yelling. But what's making you so passionate? What did I say? What did I do? These are the conversations that you're now trying to have as the more healed version of you. Because what else way is there to be but the best version of yourself? Because nobody can rock the best version of you better than you. But also nobody benefits the most from the best version of you than you. You know, your spouse may love this new, invigorating, positive, whatever type of person you've become. But even you on the inside should feel the difference of that. You should be able to feel the growth of that. And boundaries is what's going to get you there. Now, the boundaries are not walls. They're just specific guidelines that say, hey, that's too far. I'm not there yet. And as you grow, your boundaries will lessen and they will shift. So you may have less boundaries in this area and they may shift and need to be applied to another area. They're never totally gone because boundaries are necessary. They're essential to life. But as you and your partner begin to grow, you won't cross as many and neither will they. Now, will things be perfect? Of course not. Because to the core of us, we are still a little bit traumaful as a species. I mean, the human race is just, we just are what we are. It's like God give us a brain and we just show out. You know what I mean? He give us common sense and we choose to use half of it, if any at all. It just gets that way. Something triggers you and it triggered you before you could catch it because you didn't know it was coming. You know what I mean? Those are going to be the off times. Those shouldn't be the on times. Those should be far and few and in between. And this is with continuous awareness and continuous preparation, continuous planning, and continuous thought. Now, when I say continuous with preparation and planning, it means I know my partner now. I understand their triggers. So I'm going to prepare how I want to address certain situations. And in that preparing, I'm going to plan it out. Because if I just go to it, just full throttle, I'm probably going to be crossing all types of boundaries. And it's the boundaries that I myself don't want crossed. So I'm going to be mindful of that. I'm going to make certain that I think before I speak. I think before I interact. And who am I considering in this situation? Is this about my partner? Is this about me? Or is this about us collectively? Because it could be all or nothing. You know what I mean? It could be really just about your partner. It could really be just about you. And it could be about the both of y'all. But when you know the triggers of your partner, then you know certain boundaries not to cross. And we should have a respect for boundaries. A lot of times people just don't. They want to be who they are. They do what they do. Can't nobody tell them nothing. And I mean, there's a lack of respect there when it comes to somebody that you love, because love is selfless. Love is kind. Love is gentle. So if loving you makes you treat somebody else unlovingly or disrespect their boundaries, you got to question the love that you're giving yourself. You just do. I mean, because you shouldn't be able to do that cool, calm, and collectively. Like, you should kind of feel that kind of like in the pit of your stomach. Like, I probably could have did that differently, or I could see where I may have done some violating in that situation verbally, or maybe with my actions. And the best way to create boundaries is to respect boundaries. Because when you respect boundaries, first off, you're leading by example and showing what that looks like. But for two, it gives you a sense of confidence to create your own, right? I respect yours. So in respecting your boundaries, I have set an expectation for you to respect mine. And I don't feel guilty about it. Let's take the guilt out of creating boundaries, especially with loved ones. That whole feeding you with a long handle wooden spoon, because I had to realize it wasn't just a spoon. It's a long handle spoon. That's for a reason. Now, some people will elect just not to feed the person. That's between you and your God. But if we're going to be our brother's keeper and we're going to take care of thy neighbor, right? We're going to just extend the handle, but we're going to feed them, right? You have to. Or maybe not. I don't know. This is a judgment-free zone. This is a safe space. So I'm just going to tell you the way that I understand and the way that works for me. And then you can pull out the pieces, how they say you can chew the meat and spit out the bones. I have a lot of these little colloquialisms. Is that what they're called? Or what do you call those things? Drop that in the comment section. What do you call when you know all these little catchphrases? Is that just what it is? Catchphrases? What my mama them used to say. I mean, I don't know. What's the title, the label for that? But I have a lot of those, and they really do apply. I even have a few of my own, but they really do apply. So lead by example. There goes another one. Practice what you preach. There goes another one. And I wish it would. No, not that one. Sorry. Let me dial it back. You know where I'm going with this. Boundaries are important. Don't feel guilty about setting them. Feel guilty about not sticking to them. If there's any guilt to feel guilty about the boundary that you allowed to be broken or trampled on or removed. That's on you. You can make exceptions to the rules, but the fewer the exceptions, the fewer the disrespect. I'm just saying. And so when it comes to your partner, you're going to have to be able to create boundaries that protect you from your own triggers and your own toxic responses. And it's safe to sometimes say, hey, that's probably not going to get the better part of me. You do that, that's probably going to be an issue. I'm almost positive. I can be certain that that behavior is going to bring up a different side of me. And I would like to avoid that side of me, because she's gone, but she know how to come back, if you know what I mean. It's your triggers, it's your trauma, and it's your truth. Don't let anybody trespass that. Don't. I know you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You're probably a people pleaser and you want to get along. And that's fine. That's great. But sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you just can't. And that's okay too. That's perfectly okay. You have to know that there are times when you cannot allow your boundaries to be crossed just to get along. There will be so much resentment and so much entitlement and so much anger that's going to brew from just not creating a boundary. So create them. What's the worst that could happen? They cross it, you push them back across. You come across, I push you back across again. Now, I only got 2 or 3 kind of push you back across. Now, you start deliberately crossing those boundaries, we're not going to have a problem because the dismissive part of me is going to come out and you getting dismissed. Okay, no, that wasn't supposed to go there. So, what's going to happen? Yeah, no, you're going to get dismissed. That's just what's going to happen. That's in any relationship. I create a boundary. I'm specific about that boundary. I tell you what that looks like, tell you what to avoid. And so if I feel that you are deliberately crossing that boundary, then that means that you are deliberately disrespecting me. And I have no need for this relationship. Because what I won't do is invite disrespect into my life. I don't need that. We're sitting here trying to be positive, trying to be healthy, try to have self-love and self-care. And then here you come in with what? Trampling all over my little boundary garden? I don't think so. Not happening. It is important. Listen to me. Important that you create boundaries, guiltless boundaries, and that you stick to it. So what's the prescription for today? 1, create the boundary. 2, stand on that boundary. Just like they say, stand on business. I know that was another one. But stand on that boundary. Hold true to that boundary. Be specific about that boundary, what it is and what crossing it looks like. What are the actions that you see in violation of your boundaries? And then the last prescription, respect other boundaries. Yeah, that thing goes both ways now. You can't just create boundaries and then just bust through everybody else's. You can't do that. And then last but certainly not least, lead by example. Now, is everybody going to do what you do? No. But you set the tone for that. And you'd be surprised how many people respect you because you're respectful. You'd be surprised. A lot of times people treat you the way that you carry you. So when you have these attachment style tantrums and you are exhibiting all of the negative behaviors, you get treated negatively. I mean, is there anybody that begs to differ with that? You dish it. You better be ready to take it. So I ain't gonna hold you up much longer. You know what I mean? I always come into your home and I get comfortable and it's not that I don't want to leave, but I gotta go. You know what I'm saying? I gotta go. I hear my ride. There goes my ride. So make certain, if you have not already, that you subscribe, especially if you made it to the end of this video. There is no reason for you to sit through all of this goodness and not subscribe. And then on top of subscribing, you got to hit the notification button. If you don't hit the notification button, how are you going to know when I upload a video? I mean, I know I tell you when I'm going to upload the video, but you might forget. So the notification is just a reminder. That's all. And it's not even going to bug you. It's just going to ping you and let you know, hey, the Healologist has uploaded. So you want to stay on top of that. I also do want to mention that coming this fall, I will be starting to open this podcast to company. So that means that not only will I be coming over, but I'm going to be bringing a friend. And we're going to be talking about their journey, about healing and their emotional traumas. And I'm sure it's going to be very relatable because I have been impacted by some people who have some phenomenal stories about emotional trauma and how they got over it. Because I don't have enough stories to cover everybody, but I have some people who do. And then also, if you would like to be a part of that, and it does not have to be physically here, we can do that virtually or via phone. Let me know. I would love to hear about your journey to wholeness, your journey to healing, and what that attachment style was. Hey, listen, that right there, I'm telling you, everywhere I go, what's your attachment style? But this, of course, is not before I've already kind of guessed what it is. Because after a while, you kind of can see it and you're like, you got an issue with this and you got an issue with that. But you're going to see how much better your relationships develop when you are able to identify someone's attachment style based on the company, based on the communication. And you'll be able to handle them differently, but only secured. I know I said it. I said I was going. I'm going right now. I promise. My ride is ready. So am I. And until next time, bye, loves. Now, if you enjoyed this episode of the Hardened Healed Podcast, go ahead and subscribe, share with a friend, and turn on your notification button so that you don't miss an episode.